So like gentleman said, my name's Sarndeep Nijjar. I work for a company called ECS Digital. And we're essentially an organization that helps enterprises move to a more digital and modern way of working. Okay? My friend, my handsome young devil to the left of me, his name is Wynne, who works for BP, Upstream Digital. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I've worked for BP for nearly 15 years. Spent most of that time in the engineering and operations division. And about a year and a half ago, I made a transition across into a new part of the business that BP formed called Upstream Digital. So basically, I'm here accompanying Sarndeep just to talk you through some of the points that I've found pertinent and really important about how UX first development can improve your business.
So, the common trend is in our marketplace, we all want to become more digital. I'm not going to go over the reasons why. We're all here because we want to either start on that journey or we're on that journey. Now, I've been a software engineer for about 15 years, and I've been doing digital transformation projects for about a decade. And I can safely say that the hardest thing to change and move to this new direction is changing people's mindset, the people that work for you. And getting the people that work for you to embrace, get motivated and enthused, and put effort into your company's organization direction. Couple that with the fact that we as humans only tend to put effort into those things that are valuable. It's really, really important that the organization's new direction and the products that you're building are perceived to be of high value. And that's where we talk about perceived value.
Right, so up here on the screen, we've got 3 examples. So as I said, I've been on this journey for about a year and a half, and these are just 3 examples I've picked that clearly try and articulate how a UX first approach to development can help. So first thing is perceived value. So on the graph here, you've got perceived value in the red and cost in the black. And so the first example here on the top left is how when you start your journey with a project, you build up your development team, costs increase. And basically, because the stakeholders, the end users, have not been engaged properly, they haven't seen delivery, their perceived value ends up dropping. And one of the impacts we found that has is then the business aims to cut costs because they don't see value for the product. And so you'll see the cost comes down. And from then on, the development team can never kind of develop and deliver a product that maximizes value to the business, and hence the project probably gets cancelled. Another example here on the right-hand side, again, we've got the black lines increasing, showing that you're increasing costs because your development team's growing one by one. And the team then starts delivering a product. However, the key thing here was that because, again, the stakeholders, the end users, weren't engaged properly, they were kind of super excited. It might be the first time they were involved in a digital product. So they've probably read books or spoken to people about how exciting it can be. So their excitement is overinflated. And thus, when reality sort of hits of how long it can take to develop a product hits, the perceived value drops. And again, that's because they're not being engaged properly. And even if the stakeholders are very confident, very happy with the product, if they to try and increase the perceived value of the product, they might aim to look to increase the development team to try and increase the speed of delivery, and hence the costs increase. However, you can see in the graph here, it's kind of the perceived value is never increased enough above cost, and again, the product is at risk of being cancelled. Which leads down to the last example here at the bottom. So this one's quite close to my heart because I've lived with this for probably the last 6 months. This is where the project begins. The stakeholders are very, very happy. They have some experience with digital products. The development team start delivering the product to the stakeholders, end users. However, just because of the duration and time it takes to build and develop a digital tool, the project is always at risk of being cancelled. And hence, what we want is try and speed up, increase the perceived value early on in the life cycle of the product.
So perceived value, as you can see, can be quite unpredictable, and we've attributed that to the way that we traditionally build software. Now, sorry, I changed the slide. Just getting used to this. So I've oversimplified what I think the process is from when we want to build a product and we go through the process to actually deliver it to our end users. I'm sure everybody in this room can kind of relate to this process. So the first sort of phase is the idea phase. We have stakeholders and end users come up with an idea to solve a particular business case to release some value. They then take that idea to their program leadership and the finance team for them to validate it, to ensure that there is business value that is going to be released, to ensure that the product or service that they want to create is going to be in line with the organization's strategic goals for the year, say, or the quarter. Once you get the sign checked and you get a green tick, you move into set up and build. At this point, an organization will start to mobilize a development team, maybe in-house or engaging a vendor. Once that team has been mobilized, we get into the build phase using agile principles and processes. It's at this stage, traditionally, we introduce UX and user experience. And from our experience, we think that's way too late.
Yep, so what we've learned is to ask ourselves these three questions and make sure that we're confident that the answer is yes.
So the first thing is, are we building the right thing? So you could argue, yes, we have stakeholder engagement throughout the process, from the ideation stage to actually building it. When we get into building the product, we have a product owner that represents the needs of the end users. So we can say that we're building the right thing. Are we building it right? Are we sure that the application or piece of software that we're going to build is going to be robust, reliable, not have many bugs in it, and essentially not crash? Well, we can say yes as well, because if you engage a really good development team or a good vendor that has modern agile development practices, understands DevOps, understands things like test-first driven development, you can ensure that your engineering practices are going to be on point.
And the third question that we've learned to ask ourselves, and I think this is quite an important one, is are we managing the perceived value of the product or the delivery to the stakeholders and users? And so what we've found, sorry, next slide, yeah, cool. So what we found is that basically if you embed UX in at the start, you can manage perceived values a lot better.
When we talk about UX, we're not just talking about UI design. Okay, UI design is just an input into the system. And if we look at modern inputs into the system, we have things like natural language processing, so we can talk to devices. We have hand gestures, so we can gesture to operate a device. We have virtual reality, we have augmented reality. These are just inputs into a system. What UX really means is the ability to sit with your end users, sit with your stakeholders, sit with those people that have the problems and frustrations, and build really, really useful solutions. Now, at ECS Digital and even at BP, we've adopted the UX process of the 5 Ds, which is discover, define, design, develop, and deploy. I'm not going to go to each one in detail because it's a very rich subject, but if you want to grab me afterwards, I'm more than happy to talk wax lyrical about these things. But essentially what we've done is we've taken the traditional process, implemented UX from the start. So in the idea phase, we introduce a UX designer or engineer to sit with your end users and stakeholders. They will understand the frustrations and the problems, and they will start building solutions and prototypes. Once you have those prototypes, you can take them into the validation stage. You can show your stakeholders, your program leadership team, your finance, an actual tangible prototype. So they can see exactly what they're going to get, exactly what the business value is going to be released. Once you have that prototype, you get into sort of the setup to build, or what we call define. And that's really creating a really clear, unambiguous backlog of what you're going to build, backed up with artifacts such as UX prototypes. Then when we go into the build phase, the development team knows exactly what they have to build because they have backlog, they have the prototypes. We embed the UX designer inside the development team, so now we know that the development team will not deviate from the original intention.
Right, so how did we do it at BP? So going back to the original slide where it had the 3 graphs. So the key thing that we're trying to message here is that we want to close the gap between perceived value and cost. Okay, so ideally we want perceived value to always either be equal to the cost or above the cost. And so what we learned to do at BP is that we mobilize a small UX design team, and they would always work around about 8 sprints ahead, so 16 weeks ahead of the main development team. And as Sarndeep mentioned earlier, the advantage of that is that they get ahead of the development team, the prototyping, the testing, and actually what this kind of the outer layer, the discover, define, design kind of arrows are supposed to show is that it creates kind of a protective layer between the core engineering development team and the stakeholders. So it's a win-win. So the stakeholders feel more engaged, they know what to expect, they're not caught out of the blue, they can answer to their management what's happening. And likewise, the development team can kind of just get on and work on the engineering part of the digital product.
Yeah, and when you're mobilizing a team like this, it's not just about UX designers. You have to make sure that the prototypes and the designs that they come up with are feasible. So at BP, we coupled the UX designers with the developer as well. A developer that was fully versed in the platforms, the infrastructure, the languages, the libraries that the developers were using. So when we got to the build stage with these prototypes, we knew there was going to be a seamless build. So working software builds confidence, and we all know that building software and getting it into the hands of users to enable that feedback loop is a key facet of agile development. And if you get into the cadence, if your development team gets into the cadence of delivering that software, your stakeholders are going to know that if they populate a backlog, they are going to get an iterative product sooner or later and at a good cadence. But what I've really learned through this journey is prototypes fuel imagination, and we could really learn a lot from other industries that use prototypes to sort of fuel imagination and attract consumers to their brands. For example, car manufacturers. So every now and again, a car manufacturer will release a concept car. We know that this concept car is probably never going to see the light of day, but features within that concept car will make it into production line models. Okay? So that's exactly how we should treat the way we do software development. We have to create that imagination, use prototypes, test them, fail fast, fail early, so we know that when we do get a feature, it will really, really enhance the product that we're delivering. Now, if you take a case in point example of Rolls-Royce, they recently released a concept car. And apart from it being what I think really good looking, and it has really good AI, fully autonomous, AI that can rival sort of Jarvis out of Iron Man, it is really something to behold. You should videos on YouTube. But one thing that really struck me about this is it didn't have a boot. Now, I have a problem, and I'm sure most of you do, that if you've got a large growing family, when you go on holiday, you pack your car full of luggage, you drive down to the airport, you press a button, lid comes up, and then you try and drag the suitcase up. In my case, it's always overpacked because my wife likes to overpack for holidays for myself and the 2 children. Get it over the lid, put it on the floor, probably stub my toe. It's quite a cumbersome activity. The designers at Rolls-Royce have thought about this, and they've eliminated the boot. Instead, what you do is, with a hand gesture, the luggage is delivered to you on a tray. Not only is it delivered to you on a tray at the side of the car, it's delivered at hand height. So you can pick it up, put it down, and walk off. So for me, that just really is a great example of how UX and prototype testing can give you kick-ass features. I really think that feature, and I may be wrong, is going to make it into production line cars of the future. And again, this is how we should treat our software development activities too.
So what are the benefits of a UX-first approach to development? So linking back to the concept car from Rolls-Royce. So as I said at the start, I'm relatively new to the whole digital transformation and building digital products. So one thing that struck me when I came into this part of this part of my company was that I guess I thought that software development was a lot quicker than building something from an engineering, like physical metal in the desert somewhere. And it is to some extent. However, with the prototype, the whole point of prototyping is that you can build something a lot quicker, you can engage with the stakeholders a lot better, you can visualize something a lot better. So the benefits of a UX approach is the fact that you can manage the stakeholders' expectations a lot better. So here again, another wonderful graph is the fact that perceived value and cost again. The key thing here is that the cost and the perceived value starts at the same point. So that, first of all, with UX, it means that your UX designers or your concept validation team has gone, met with the stakeholders, they've flashed out their expectations and their desires, and hence they know exactly what they're going to get from the dollars they're going to spend. So cost and value are the same. Again, they're kept on the journey. They're continually kept in the loop about how the project is going. It's very quick, it's very iterative, feedback loops continually, and hence when they spend more dollars, they understand what they're getting, and hence, again, the perceived value is managed and it's in line with the cost. However, at some point, because the process has been streamlined, the UX design team has started to kind of get ahead of what the stakeholders have thought. They start to brainstorm, they start to push the envelopes of what the stakeholders have really imagined, so a bit like the concept car with Rolls-Royce. The designers are pushing the Rolls-Royce engineers of what's possible. Just like here, the design team are pushing the stakeholders. Likewise, at the same time, the development team are getting better and better at just delivering the product to meet the expectations of the stakeholder. And hence, the graph's trying to show that the perceived value then exceeds over the cost. Great, that's what we want. There's a slight dip in the curve then. What we've noticed is the fact that as the confidence of the stakeholders or end users grow, because they've engaged, they feel part of the team, they're seeing delivery, continual delivery, they actually open their horizons and they start to bring in other areas of the business into scope, into the digital product that's being developed here. And hence, the cost line there is kind of showing that the same design team and the same development team can then start to develop more features for less cost. So the feature cost decreases for the same size of company, same size as team.
So again, if we move to this way of working, there's a firm focus on the present, and what I mean by that is we've tested all the prototypes. We know that's what the end users want, and the development team have a clear focus on what they have to deliver for their near-term sprints. But what's, I think, more valuable is it develops a huge ambition for the future. The stakeholders know how the application is going to develop over time, again through prototypes, again through tangible things that they can play with and access at any time. But the development team also has that view as well. So instead of just coding for what's in the sprint, they can start looking to modify their code and library for what's for the future. So they can start coding for the future because they know what the future looks like. And I guess the final point is, overall, we've seen that it's increased our ability to release business value. So we work constantly with our end users and stakeholders in this UX strategy. We have productive and energetic engagements with them. We work in the domain, we understand the domain. So we build really, really useful solutions. But what's even more powerful is good news spreads like wildfire. So you start getting other people within the area and domain approach you with their problems. So you have this continual cycle of problem solving, which has only for us released huge amounts of business value. And the success of it has meant that, you know, demand for our services is far outweighing what we can actually deliver.
Yeah, to the point where we're actually going to start to stand up more of a UX design team to meet future demand. So
I'm going to be here all day, stealing USB pens and branded T-shirts. Adam is off at lunchtime.
I've got too many of them, so I'm off at lunch.
So please come and say hello, and if there's anything in the presentation that you're interested in, that you want to talk to us about, please do. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found it useful, and enjoy the rest of the event.